Hey guys, how's it going? It's time to look at my Magic the Gathering binder collection again, this time because I filled it up basically with new cards and, well, basically old cards. I just bought some to relive the nostalgic value. I used to have a huge collection back in the day with my friend, but unfortunately most of it got stolen. And yeah, now that I have money again, I can finally buy back the things I lost basically. Okay, so let's look at Magic collection now. I've already done a video on this, but at that time the binder was not full and it's quite different now. So let's take a look at different cards here and do a little bit of a explanation of each one. All these cards are pretty good. I think they're either rares and mythic rares. There's no really, I would say that the cards, there's some crappy rares in here by the way, but it's all the cards are either rare or mythic rare, or they're really good commons or uncommons. So let's take a look. Okay. First, we got Factor Fiction. This is a really good card for control decks. I'm just going to do a brief sentence for each one because there's so many of them and, you know, it's going to take too long. Yeah, really good card for control decks. Rock's War Monk. This is a good Bant card as well. Good body, good mana cost, lifelink. Cajeldan Outpost is also really good for control decks. It's a land that creates creatures, so that makes it really hard for the opponents to destroy and get rid of. Brilliant Sun's Avatar, haven't really used this card before. I think that's a new one. Deranged Hermit, this one is, I used to use it in my Shaman Rock deck, not anymore. I think I use Thragtusk now. But yeah, I used it for the ability to create 4 2/2s as soon as it comes out, and then, you know, you just bounce it back to your hand and then redo it. So that's pretty useful. It's good for reanimation as well. Ponder, this is a really great general purpose great card for blue decks. So Devi Digger is kind of like a Rachel Lantern. Do I have Rachel Lantern here? No. Yeah, I do. Okay. Same thing. Except this is an uncommon. I think this one's a rare, but I used to use this in a control deck to recycle my cards, basically. It makes it really hard for them to get rid of all my cards. Elspeth Tyrell, Planeswalker. Just, yeah, it's good. Ajani Goldmane, same thing. It's a white Planeswalker. Planeswalkers are good. And, alright, let's go on. Alright, Dismember. This is a really good kill spell, especially since you can actually pay life instead of black mana for it, and it's an instant. Shivan Hellkite's just a dragon. I like to collect some dragons and angels, by the way. So yeah, I got this basically because of it being a dragon. I don't really use it. Inquisition of Kozilek's a really good card that is almost as good as Thoughtseize. Not quite, but almost, and it's a really good uncommon. Vindicate is simple, effective, great card. 3 mana, destroy anything on the board. Hymn to Turak, 2 mana, target player destroys 2 cards at random. Very, very efficient. Removal, very, very efficient discard spell. Eldrazi Monument is 5 mana. Creatures you control get +1/+1, have flying and are indestructible. Obviously, very, very powerful if you have like a token deck, which I do have. So I've tried it in my token decks before. Stillmoon Cavaliers, nice efficient card here. 3 mana, 2/1, and has a bunch of abilities, pro white black. Balance, very powerful card, 2 mana. And then basically you can equal out the board just with 2 mana. So very powerful. Reaper of the Wilds, never really used it. I think it's a new card, but seems to have good abilities. Good for rock decks maybe. Okay, let's look at, I think it's maybe easier for me just to take my phone. Okay, here we go. Alright, Sakura Tribe Elder, 2 mana, sack it, you can search your library, it's a built-in rampant growth. Generally, very, very good card for green decks in general. Telarius Battalion is good for aggro decks because it's 2 mana for 4/3, but you have to be green heavy to use it, and it's trample. But yeah, you have to be green heavy. Friction Metamorph is really good for control decks. You can copy any artifact or creature on the battlefield, and you actually use it in a non-blue deck because you can pay with 2 life as well. So it's like a sculpting steel / clone for very, very versatile. You can use it in non-blue decks. Fecundity is good for combo decks. Whenever this works for your opponent as well, whenever a creature dies, that player's controller draws a card. So good for that Ironworks deck that I have. And then, except I have Skull Clamp, which is basically better than this. Boros Reckoner is 3 mana, 3/3. Deal damage, deals that much damage. Just a generally efficient card. Kind of like Figure of Destiny. I don't think I have Figure of Destiny in here, but maybe I should. But yeah, Boros Reckoner. Hypnotic Spectre, 3 mana, 2/2 flying, deals damage, discard a card. General purpose efficiency, very good. Wall of Roots, 2 mana, 0/5, but you can add mana. But the great thing about this is it doesn't need to tap. It's still able to act as a defender, so this is a really good ability that we don't even see anymore. Is -1, -0, -1 counters. Yeah, you don't really see those. But good defender and mana creature. This is a defensive card. Whenever one or more attacks deals damage equal number of attacking creatures. Okay, just a defense card. Woolly Thought-Touch is a general efficient vanilla creature, 3 mana, 5/4. Absurd stats for the mana value. Good for aggro decks. Then we have Yavimar Elder, good for rock decks. Dies, you get 2 land cards, and you put it in your hand, and you can stack it to draw a card. Of course, you can do that anytime. Second Harvest is an instant, which is cool. And it doubles the amount of tokens you control, so basically it's a better parallel evolution. Great for token decks. Thornscape Master is 4 mana, 2/2, very, very versatile card. Kind of weak stats, but great abilities. I mean, you can give something protection, or it's a built-in shock, only for creatures, but it's still cool. Voice of the Woods is something I use in my Intruder Alarm deck. You tap 5 elves, you get 7/7. That's cool, right? Armadillo Cloak, great enchantment. Aurora, I mean. It's a great Aurora. And 3 mana, +2/+2 trample, and lifelink. It's awesome. Diabolic Addict, one of the best removal cards, 2 mana. To get someone to sack a creature which is not targeting the creature. So that's how you can get rid of some protection guys. Friction Arena is basically like Necropotence Jr., I guess. Every upkeep you draw a card, lose 1 life. So it's basically a very, very watered down version, but still pretty good. In control decks, mono black control, I mean. Mutilate, mono black control. All creatures get -1/-1 for each swamp. Yeah, it's a very good destructive spell. Kind of like Damnation. I guess you would use Damnation still maybe a little bit better, but sometimes this one's much cheaper to get than Damnation, though. Yeah. Lightning, black, red, 3 damage, discard 2 cards. Kind of like the Lightning Helix of black, red, I guess. Very, very efficient. Then you have Grim Lavamancer, very efficient card. Because it has a built-in, as long as you have 2 cards in your graveyard, it can shock people. It has a built-in shock, basically. It can be repeatable, too. Kamal Pit Fighter, this is the main guy from the Odyssey block. So the Odyssey block is what I started out with, so this guy kind of brings back memories, although he's not very good. He only has haste. I mean, he has a built-in lightning bolt, which is really cool, but he only has 1 toughness, which makes him very, very easy to kill, unfortunately. Go for the throat. I guess if you don't have Diabolic Addict, this is the next best option. Is targeted, which means it can't kill protection guys, but you can target and destroy, whereas the sacrifice cannot target. So you might want to use both. Smother, not quite as good as Go for the Throat, but it can target artifact creatures. So I guess there's that. Volcanic Fallout can't be countered. This was originally made to counter fairies, I think. And then, yeah, 2 damage to everything. So, and it's an instant, which is nice. It's a good sideboard card. Knight of the White Orchid is general purpose good mana 2/2 card. I think what's that card? Wayfarer or something. The one that fetches any land, kind of like a land tax. That card is better than this, but because that card is kind of expensive, you would pick this one. Because that Weathered Wayfarer card allows you to search for any card from your deck, any land card from your deck. If you have, if your opponent has more lands, this one you can search for plains, but plains can also mean like a dual land or something. So that's not bad. It's not as good as any land, but it's decent, and it's first strike, so it's better than it's better stats wise. Behemoth Sedge is a Armadillo Cloak in equipment form, or it's actually a little bit better than Lockstone Warhammer, I think. So, but it's an uncommon, whereas Warhammer is a rare. So, go figure. Simic Sky Swaller is green blue. I think it's a green blue finisher. 6/6 flying trample shroud. Awesome combination, very hard to kill. Leogmos Will. Yeah, this is one of the most powerful cards ever. Until end of turn, you play cards in graveyard as though they were in your hand. So if you have 0 mana cost cards like Black Lotus or Lotus Petal or Mock Sapphires or Ancestral Recalls and stuff, you can play them from your graveyard. So that makes this card very degenerate. Bogot Ramgang, 3 mana, 3/3 haste, simple and wither, simple effective. Aggro, Saproling Symbiosis is for token decks. It basically doubles the amount of tokens that you have, except they're Saprolings. Collected Company, it's a good card. It's 4 mana instant. You would use this card if you have a deck with a lot of creature cards that cost 3 mana or less, I guess. Yep. Exalted Angel, one of my favorites from back in the day. Not that powerful anymore, but she used to be powerful. Morph, the morph mana cost is only 4, so usually you put this down on turn 3, then you morph it turn 4, and then it's a 4/5 flying lifelink, which is actually a pretty powerful play for turn 4. Even today, I guess, but definitely back then where the power level was lower, this was one of the better cards. Fireman Adventure, 3/3. Flying, and then if you have 2 other creatures attack, it has a lightning helix in it, so pretty good. Paladin on Vec, again, efficient cards. I really like efficient cards with lots of keywords. 3 mana, simple and simple, easy to understand. 3 mana, 2/2, first strike, pro black, pro red. It's Silver Knight and White Knight combined together. Then you got this guy, Kemba, for equipment, and too slow for my equipment deck though. Yeah, 3 mana is too slow. I think the limit for my deck was 2 mana. Johnny Called applied again. Very, very cheap planeswalker, only 3 mana, but also not very powerful either. So that's why I have him here. I think I'm more than one because, yeah, this one is not as. Yeah. Anyways, I think I'm more than one. Yeah, not very powerful, but also very cheap too. Kitchen Finks is one of the all-around best white-green cards. You can use either green or white or both. 3/2. And 2 life when it comes to play. Persist means it comes back twice. If it dies, it comes back as a 2/1. So very, very powerful card. I use it in a lot of my decks. Hull Breach is a great card, kind of like Naturalize. It's basically Naturalize, except sometimes it can be better because you can destroy an artifact and an enchantment at the same time, but you have to splash red for it. And it's a sorcery. This one, Druid deck, I guess, you can tap 7 to gain control of all lands. Target player control is very powerful if you have a Druid deck. Soul Ring, very, very powerful card. Actually, why am I not using this in my other decks? I should be using this. Every deck needs a Soul Ring, guys. 1 mana, tap to add 2. Raging Ravine, it's a red-green land that can turn into a 3/3 elemental, so that's cool. Lightning Greaves is very powerful. 2 mana, 0 mana equipped. That makes this pretty much the same as all your creatures have haste and shroud almost. It says equipped creatures have haste and shroud, so it's almost the same as having saying creatures you control have haste and shroud, except you can only use that on 1 creature at a time. Fire Ice, very, very versatile card. Not very powerful individually, but can be useful, especially on Isochron Scepter. Putrefy, 3 mana, destroy any artifact. Creature can't be regenerated. Yeah, very powerful card. Again, you can use it in many instances. Not quite as good as Vindicate, though. Counter Squall, town target non-creature spell loses 2 life. You had to splash black, but otherwise strictly better than Remove Soul. But yeah, you just splash black for it. Sejax's Spectre, pretty efficient card. It's like Hypnotic Spectre, except it's not at random, but it has 1 more attack, and you can unearth it to play it again. So if you're running blue, black, and red, you would run that over Hippie. And Hide Hollow Scholar is 2 mana, 2/2. You remove a card in your opponent's hand. When you play him, then he gets it back when this dies, so it can be a temporary nice play on 2 mana, I guess, on turn 2. Innocent Blood is 1 mana, basically kills a creature that you might not want. So say your opponent has a Progenitus or something really hard to remove. Guess what? 1 mana removes it. Terminate, 2 mana, destroy target creature can't be regenerated. Very, very efficient card. It's better than Go for the Throat. It's better than Smother. It's better than all the other ones, except for maybe Diabolic Addict, because that one doesn't target. But if you're looking for a targeted spell, nothing's better than just destroy target creature, isn't it? Alright, again, Woolly Thoctor, I think more of those. Detention Sphere, it's basically like Oblivion Ring, except you splash blue for it, but the advantage is that you can exile all the other permanents with the same name. So it's kind of, if you have tokens, if your opponent has tokens, for example, multiple tokens, you can just kill all of them at once. So that's the advantage over OB Ring. Sphere of Safety is like a propaganda, except it's the opponent has to pay 1 mana for each artifact enchantment you control. So if you have an enchantment deck, this is very good. Otherwise, very costly. Sarah Avenger, very efficient card. 2 mana, 3/3. You can't play it during the first 3 turns of the game, but it's if you're playing in the late game, it's really efficient. 2 mana for 3/3 Flying Vigilance. Pretty efficient card. Duress is pretty good. 1 mana discard spell. Non-creature, non-land card is the restriction, but since there's so many non-creature, non-land cards, it's a very good one. Trigon Predator is a artifact enchantment deck's worst nightmare because it's flying, so it's hard to block. And then when it deals damage, you destroy something. So it's kind of like Aura Shards. Aura Shards is the other one that's really kind of a nightmare for enchantment and artifact decks. This is the other one. Alright, Thornscape Master, basically like the other Master I said, very versatile. And Propaganda, nice control card. I play this in a lot of my stalling decks. 3 mana. They can't attack you unless you pay 2 mana. They pay 2 mana for each creature that's attacking you. So it's Ghostly Prison, but this one came first. So very nice control card. Counterbalance is also a good control card, I guess. Whenever they play a spell, you reveal a top card, and then if you do counter that spell, it's really good if you combo it with Sensei's Divining Top. And yeah, Erratic Portal, 1 mana. You can basically, this is kind of like the annoying the opponent. It's kind of like Crystal Shard. You just keep tapping it and then make them use up their mana, and that's really good in conjunction with Propaganda and other cards like that. Rancor, really powerful card. 1 mana, aura, and then it gets +2/+0 and trample. The really annoying part of this card is when it's put into graveyard from the battlefield, you get it back to your hand. So this thing really never dies unless this thing is naturalized. Yeah, but if the creature dies, you get this back to your hand. Lost No Gatekeeper, basically it's Kismet on a creature, which is cool. I mean, they haven't reprinted Kismet, so I guess you would use this one instead. Very nice control card. Blade Wind is an awesome dragon, because when it comes to the battlefield, you return target dragon permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It has a built-in reanimation for dragons, so it could be pretty powerful. You just discard one, and then you get this back via reanimation. Yeah, it's good for a reanimator deck. Alright, Parallax Wave is good for flicker kind of decks, I guess. I use this in my Venser deck because you can use it both offensively and defensively. So you can remove problem creatures that the opponent has. Also, you can use it to save your own creatures and trigger their leave, play, enter the battlefield abilities. Recoil is a good one. I wonder why they haven't reprinted this, because this is a pretty good card to reprint. It's 3 mana instant, nicely efficient. It returns, it boomerangs something, and then that player has to discard a card. If that player doesn't have any cards in his hand, then this is basically a removal spell. Flametongue Kavu is great, 4 mana, 4/2, built-in Lightning Blast when it comes into play. They used to call this guy the Sarah Angel Killer. Talked about this guy already. Wonder is nice card. If it's in your graveyard, you control island. Everything you have, all the creatures you control are flying, and flying is a really powerful ability. So I think I used to use this in a combo deck, the Bridge from Below deck, the Cephalid Breakfast deck, and then it mills this thing into my graveyard. Whoops. Yeah, so this is a pretty good card. If it's in my graveyard, then every creature I control have flying. And yeah, I used to use this with my Cephalid Breakfast deck. I would mill things into my graveyard, trigger Bridge from Below, and since I would control an island, this thing would trigger, and all my creatures are flying, and then they would be unblockable, basically. So that's good. They have evasion. This one is Kythrian, so he can transform into a planeswalker, I believe. Yeah. What's his transformed form again? Is it Gideon? Yeah, it's Gideon. Okay. I don't think I use this card because it's still a little bit slow, but yeah, he can gain indestructible, I guess, so it's kind of useful. Power Conduit used to be in my my green-white kind of protection deck, but I stopped using it because I had better cards, I guess. This is part of a combo with Persist creatures. If you use this with Persist creatures, then you can basically create infinitely immortal creatures that can never die, basically. Okay, Hellrider, good for aggro decks. I don't really use it though. Marine Bosk, I use in my BGW deck because it's one of the few lands I have that can add white or black or green and doesn't come into the battlefield tapped. And Thorn Elemental is just one of my old. It's not a really good card. It's just sentimental because it's one of my first rares that I ever had. 7 mana for 7/7. I thought was a huge. I thought this was a great creature back when I was a kid. You know, it's like 7 mana. Wow, 7/7. May deals combat damage to defending players though it weren't blocked. Yeah, super trample, which means that if someone blocks it, you can deal the full damage instead of just the leftover damage for trample. So it has super trample, which is cool, and the artwork's really cool too. Stunning Grove is an enlightened tutor, built-in enlightened tutor, plus also a built-in what's this ability? Can be target spells or abilities, other enchantment. It gives you other enchantment shroud as well, so that's also cool. Form of Dragon is a good combo card. I used to use it in my Enduring Ideal deck because it resets your life to 5 every turn. That's a bad thing. However, if you have something that can use up your life total, then this can actually be a good thing because it heals you to 5. And it has a built-in moat and deals 5 damage every turn. So if your opponent can't attack you, like with Humility or something, then yeah, that's really, really powerful. Undermine is counterspell plus plus losing 3 life for the cost of 1 black mana, which can be pretty efficient, I guess. 1 mana to lose 3 life, I guess, is kind of worth it, especially if it's on the same card. Sun Droplet is a nice stalling card, because whenever you dealt damage, you accumulate it on this card, and then you gradually gain it back, so it's a kind of annoying card for people. This one also, I guess you can combine it with like Sun Droplet or something. Beginning of your upkeep, if it deals damage, you remove filibuster counter, but say you have something like Form of the Dragon and they can't attack you, or you have like a moat or something like that, then they can't attack you, then this thing will gradually win you the game, even if you have no other win conditions, so that's an alternate win condition. This card, Protean Hulk, is used in a Hulk Flash deck, and yeah, when it dies, you get any number of creature cards, so yeah, look at my Hulk Flash deck, basically. That's basically what this card's for. Channel 2 mana to add any amount of mana to your mana pool. You add it at the cost of 1 life per mana, so this used to be part of an old school combo called Channel Fireball, whereas you would like lightning bolt the opponent, and then you would channel 19 life and and then you would deal all that damage to your opponent with a fireball or a blaze or something like that. So that's an old school combo card. And Damping Matrix, good artifact because it basically shuts down all the other artifacts and creatures. So it's very, very simple to play, shuts everything down. But it's kind of hard to play this because I usually use artifacts and creatures with activated abilities. So yeah. This one, blue-white control, I guess. Yeah, this guy prevents other creatures from attacking, but it draws them a card. So good or bad, I guess. Yeah. Cura is a green-blue. I think I have the other Cura in my deck because it's slightly better. But this card's not too bad either. I just don't have room for it for a green-blue control deck. All right. Alright, now we have Flicker Wisp. This is a good card for Venser Flicker decks, I guess, and yeah, because when it comes in and out of the game, it can remove something else, so good for those kind of enter the battlefield, leaves the battlefield effects. Somphor is an interesting creature. Whenever it deals damage, one of those creatures become permanently tapped, so I think it's flying, so it's just an interesting guy. Don't use him though. Ghostly Prison, basically the white version of Propaganda. So I already mentioned that card. Ebony Alneski is good for Underworld Dreams decks and decks that let the opponent draw a lot of cards, like Forced Fruition, those kind of decks. Yeah, and it's colorless damage, which is great. On Viper is one of the most elegantly designed creatures ever, and I love it for that. 3 mana for 1/3. Whenever it deals damage, it destroys a creature. Whenever it deals damage to a player, and you draw a card. So either way, it does something. So I love how this creature is designed. Mars' Cage, just like Ebony Alneski, punishes your opponent for having too many cards in the hand. Except this one, Not quite as stringent a requirement, 5 or more cards, but only does 2 damage instead of 4 here. So it does less damage, but the requirements are less strict. Still prefer Iron Maiden though, and Black Vice. Strip Mine, great land. You can sacrifice, destroy a land, so it's basically, yeah, it's basically a Stone Rain. Yeah, it's a Stone Rain for 0 mana, and it can't be countered, so that's awesome. Elliot Scale Worms is just a really powerful creature, 7/7. Turns your life into 7, but it says, as long as you have 7 or more life, damage that reduce your life total to less than 7 reduces it to 7. So it's kind of like a worship type of effect here going on, which is really interesting. But too much mana to use for me. Certain Visions, like Preordain, but not quite as good. But you still use it, I guess, because Preordain is really, really good. Radiant Archangel, really cool card I had back in the day. 5 mana, 3/3. It's an angel, vigilance, and +1/+1 for each other creature with flying in play, and also really a part of the Urza storyline, which I really liked back in the day. The Urza, Planeswalker, and Gerard Capuchin, the Weatherlight Saga, pretty much a key figure in that saga as well. Lodestone Golem, non-artifact spells cost 1 more cast, so you'll only use this in an artifact heavy deck. Maybe like yeah, maybe like a Ravager, like an Arcbound deck or something like that. So yeah, cool. Panharmonicon is good for decks that have like flicker kind of decks. So when it comes to battlefield, it triggers stuff like that. So I would use this in my Venser, but I found Conjurer's Closet to be slightly better than that. Siok Outcast Malira's for poison counter. I think I used this for my Persist deck once because it negates the -1/-1. Steel Shiver's Gift, you search your library for equipment, so it's, yeah, a tutor for equipment. Snap is a free spell basically. 2 mana, you untap 2 lands. Actually, it's even better because you're going to tap whatever 2 lands you want. Whereas you pay 1 blue mana, 1 colorless, you can tap whatever 2 lands you want. Doesn't have to be the lands that you use for the spell. It's an instant. So good for Isoconceptors, I think. Mystic Study, one of the most overpowered commons ever. Whenever opponent plays a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1. So 3 mana for a permanent effect on the field, enchantment. Whenever opponent plays a spell that's anything, creature, anything that's not a land, you draw a card, or that player's spell costs one mana more. So how ridiculous is that card? And it's a common too. Steel Overseer, good for artifacts decks. It's just tap to bump up all your artifact creatures. Take Possession is Confiscate, except at split second, which means that it can't be countered really. So I guess that's why it's rare. And Myria is land. If you have 7 or more planes, if your plane's heavy, then you get free creature cards back. You reanimate creatures every turn. So, good card. But you had to wait. Teferi's Puzzle Box, good for Underworld Dreams decks because your opponent basically doubles the damage. Well, they take however much damage equal to their hand size basically every turn. So it's really good in my Underworld Dreams deck. Sig, don't really use this card, but sometimes good in Commander, I guess. Umbilicus is the same as what's that? Blood Clock Work or Bloodwork Clock or something. Yeah. I use it in my Venser deck because it returns my stuff to my hand for free, so I can reuse their Enter the Battlefield abilities, and hurts everyone else. Good for multiplayer. This one also pumps up all the other creatures, and can't sacrifice creatures. Okay, I guess it's good against black. And okay, Crystal Shard is basically the same as what's that one? Erratic Portal, except it's 1 mana less. But the cost of activation is 1 blue mana instead of 1 colorless. And this one don't really use. Yeah, that's just the extra rare I got. Dovescape. I use this in my Enduring Ideal deck because it counters all the non-creature spells. Like if your opponent wanted to naturalize something, destroy the enchantment, or even counter a spell, they can't do it. Everything gets turned into creatures. Then you put out Humility, and then you got the lockdown. Cranial Plating. The soft lock. I mean, Cranial Plating is really, really powerful in artifact decks because creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control, which could be a lot, including artifact lands, and equip is only 1, so kind of a broken card. Siege Rhino, kind of just an efficient card. 4 mana, 4/5 is good stats, trample, and if it's a multiplayer game, then you have more to gain from it. Sunken Hope, it's kind of a lesser version of Umbilicus. Yeah, it takes blue mana, so it's not quite as good as Umbilicus, but it forces your opponents to return something to your hand instead of giving them an option, which could be better. Counterspell, one of the best cards ever printed. It's simple and it's effective. 2 mana, counter target spell. Makes whatever creature or non-creature, doesn't matter, that spell is gone for just 2 mana. Really good. Good for Icicon Scepter too. Winter Orb, also 2 mana, but it's artifact. If it's untapped, players can't tap more than 1 land, which is really good for lockdown decks, I guess. So, could be useful, good for stacks, I guess. Okay, Shadow Mage Infiltrator. This is a card designed by the great John Finkel. It's an invitational card, now reprinted. 1/3 Fear. You don't see that keyword much anymore. Deals combat damage, has to be combat damage, then you draw cards. So it's like a thieving magpie, except better. Yeah, just a really nice creature. Brago King Eternal is kind of like for Venser decks, but not quite as good. I mean, you could exile any number of target non-land permanents. So flickers everything whenever it deals damage, but you have to deal combat damage. So, but it's flying, so I guess it's doable, but only if you don't have many other cards that can do it, like the Whispering Cloudscape or whatever. Rushwood Elemental, really high mana cost, 5 green mana, but if you have it all a mono green deck, this is not bad. 4/4 trample, and it gets bigger every turn, because every turn you get a +1/+1. Valgrace Angel, 5 mana, 4/4 flying, exalted, gives all your creatures lifelink whenever they attack, and they get the exalted bonus too. It's good. Kovacs, basically like Ascendant Invocar was the black version of this, the original. This is the white version, the color shifted one. 4/4, not flying though, but non-white creatures get -1/-1. Basically kills all the 1/1 scroll or sapling tokens. It kills all those things, -1/-1. Pumps up your white creatures and built-in evasion from targeted spells, which is awesome. So if your opponent wants to destroy this, it's going to be a little bit hard to do so. Good card. Archivist, I think I have this card because I have an Intruder Alarm deck, and if I do that, then you could basically tap and draw cards infinitely, or not infinitely, just however much you want. Eldrazi Displacer, I think this was kind of like for my Venser Flicker deck, but not quite that good. I think this was also for my Venser and Flicker deck as well, but didn't make the cut. Luminous Angel, every upkeep, no, not every upkeep, your upkeep, so it's not Verdant Force, you get a 1/1 spirit creature token, but it has flying, so that's not bad. But the mana cost is like this, so I guess it's better for reanimation. Equilibrium, whenever you cast a creature spell, you pay 1 mana to return another creature to their hand. This can be severely annoying for the opponent when you have creatures that bounce back and forth, kind of like the Flicker and the Venser stuff. And every time you can pay 1, and your opponent basically, yeah, it can be an annoying card. That's why I have it in that deck. Exalted Chrysalid Pride is a good card. 2 mana to 2. Built-in Naturalize and Exalted, efficient and good. Lingering Souls, 3 mana, 2 1/1s, flashback for just 2 mana. Yeah, just 2 mana. So 5 mana for 4 1/1 white flying creatures. That's good. It's not Seer. This looks so similar to this other card here. It looks really similar. Okay. Yeah, this was also going to be for the Venser Flicker deck, but didn't make it. Ravenous Below, 4 mana, 4/4, good stats, and you can sack itself or another beast to gain 4 life. So, not quite as good as Loxodon Hierarch, but it's all green. Blaze Splicer is used in my Venser deck. Comes to battlefield, I get a 3/3 token, and I can reuse it, so I get a 3/3 every time, and first strike. Morphling is a really good finisher card for blue control decks. You can untap it, gains flying, gains shroud, you can pump it or depump it. It's just a very versatile card, so nice for blue control. Mind Crank is kind of like a combo card. Whenever they lose life, they put that many cards in the graveyard, and if they lose life as a result of that, this triggers it again, and it could go infinitely. I think there's a card that does that. Whenever it goes into the graveyard, someone loses a life, so this could trigger infinitely into a combo. I have 3 Jaces here. The Living Guild pack is kind of a weak one. Architect of Thought is also pretty weak. But this one's, yeah, they're both 4 mana, and then Memory Death's a slightly better, but costs 5 mana. It's mostly for milling, I think. Yeah, this one's like has a built-in, what is it? Mind? No. Glimpse the Unthinkable. That's right, it has a built-in Glimpse the Unthinkable. Not using those ones though. I have other Jaces that are better. Those are kind of weak Jaces. Mogis with God of Slaughter. I think this was supposed to be for my Underworld Dreams deck if I splash red. Because, yeah, okay, because it forces them to sack a creature or take 2 damage. Prophetic Bolt is nice, 5 mana. Deals 4 damage, so it's a Lightning Blast plus a built-in Impulse. So it's a Lightning Blast and an Impulse and 1 card, which separately would cost 2 cards and 6 mana instant. So I think this is good, but it's a little bit slow. False Prophet, 4 mana, 2/2. When it dies, exile all creatures. So that's kind of better than a Wrath of God in certain cases, because they're out of the game. Urza's Incubator is used to reduce costs of certain creature spells. So if you're playing a tribal deck, then this is very useful. Thoughtcast, good for affinity decks. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about with the Arcbound decks, the affinity decks. Okay, good for affinity decks. 1 mana, draw 2 cards in those decks. 4 mana, 2/2 Blinking Spirit. This is a very annoying card because 0 mana, return it to your hand, which means that so returning to the hand can be played as an instant, which means that whenever the opponent deals damage to it or they target it or something, you can always return it back to your hand and replay it again, which is extremely annoying, but 4 mana cost is a little bit much. Then we have Skullbar Walking Grave. I don't really use this card, but I guess it could be useful in certain black-green decks. Don't really use it. Stoic Angel, green, white, and blue. Can attack more than 1 creature, flying vigilance 3/4. Good stats, but only works in certain decks. Humility, this is a really powerful enchantment. I use it in the Enduring Ideal deck. So I play this one, and every creature loses all abilities, and it's a 1/1 creature. So if you combine it with Dovescape and Form of Dragon, that means they can't really do anything. They're kind of soft-locked. So, really powerful card. Clone is a cool card. Just 4 mana, copies any creature. Simple, effective, and yeah, just a classic blue card. Psychic Possession, I use it in my I use this one also in my Enduring Ideal deck because at a certain point when I combine it with Solitary Confinement, there's another card called Solitary Confinement, which prevents all damage dealt to you, and you can't be a target spell's ability, so it's an Ivory Mask as well, but you had to discard a card every turn, right? And you can't draw a card anymore. But you can still draw. If you use this card, you can draw from your opponent's deck. So you skip your draw step, you don't draw from your deck, you draw from your opponent's deck. So I think you combine this with Solitary Confinement. Alright, and now we have the Weatherlight crew. So I have the complete Weatherlight crew here. Well, most of it. They didn't really make Urza. I know they have Blind Seer, but he's not really the Urza card. And if I add in Rofellos, I have basically the complete Weatherlight crew right here. Captain Sisay is the captain of the Weatherlight. It's one of the better cards, I think, out of the Weatherlight set. I would say out of the Weatherlight crew, this is one of the better cards. Because 2 mana, search your library for a legend or legendary card and put it in your hand. I think this is a really unique ability, and that's why it's still pretty valued today. Rofellos, 2 mana for 2/1. You tap to add 1 green mana to each forest you control, so that's an awesome card. Only 2 mana, and yeah, I think there's a reason why this one was never reprinted. It's really powerful. Okay, Squee Goblin Navab. This one has been reprinted before. 3 mana, 1/1. It's basically the Sinister Serpent of Magic. When it every upkeep is in graveyard, you turn to your hand, so it's really good for discard. Like the aforementioned Solitary Confinement combo. If you have this card in your hand, you can just keep discarding it forever. For example, Current Silver Golem. 4/4, you can turn anything artifact into an artifact creature. So that's useful for artifact decks. Gerard Capuchin, the main guy of the Weatherlight, but the card is not that good. 5 mana, 3/4. Every upkeep you get 1 life. That's good. That's a good ability, but this is kind of a weak ability because it's 4 mana. and 3/4 is kind of weak stats for 5 mana. So Gerard is a good character in story, but the card is not so good. Alright, Samite Healer is a cleric. Not that exciting of a card. Just tap, prevent 3 damage. It's a lot, but not too exciting for the power level. Tangarth is 4/4 vigilance, and then it has it has a battle type of fight type effect right here. It's an okay card, but not the best either. Stark of Wrath, destroy artifact creature gains control of this, so this is definitely not a good card, and it's a very weak card. I just have it here to complete the Weatherlight crew. Urte is probably, I would say, probably the best card out of the Weatherlight crew, along with Sisei. This card, yeah, it's just good. 3 mana, 1/1. It's a wizard, 4 mana to counter target spell. I mean, it has a built-in counter spell. There's no drawbacks to that whatsoever. It's just counter spell. That's it. So it's a great card. For blue control, Henna, Ship's Navigator, 3 mana, 1/2. It's just alright. You can return target artifact enchantment from graveyards, so I guess good for if you're heavy on artifacts enchantments. Krovax the Cursed. Okay. I don't have Ascendant Invocar, so this is the Weatherlight version of Krovax. Not after he killed Volrath in, if you guys read the story. Okay, anyways, he's Vampire, and then he gains flying, but yeah, overall he's not that good of a card. Alright, Micaeus the Lunarch, X +1/+1 counter, so you can tap to play one +1/+1, so it's good for if you have a lot of white weenies in your deck. You can pump them all up. Verdant Forest, here we have each upkeep, so even your opponent's upkeep, you create a 1/1 every turn. So this thing is a pretty big deal, and it is usually used in reanimation decks because of the high mana cost. Mystic Enforcer, just a generally good efficient card, 4 mana, 3/3. Pro black, but it's a 6/6 flying if you have Threshold, so pretty good. And Victory's Herald, I think it's pretty good. If it attacks, attacking creatures gain flying and lifelink. That's a pretty powerful ability. I guess the only thing holding this back is a 6 mana cost, but good for reanimation. Legion of the Tangle deals combat damage. I guess this is also a good one for reanimation. You choose any number of target lands you control and put an Awakening counter, and then each of those lands is 8/8 green elemental creature token. So I guess I should make a reanimation deck, shouldn't I? Just get those Buried Alives and Entombs and reanimate, animate dead, those type of cards. Because I have a lot of good cards for reanimation. I have 3 of them right here. Actually 4. I have more actually. Those are also good for reanimation. Other than Sanctuary, 2 mana. Decline to draw a card. In exchange, the only creatures that may attack you are those that have fly or have island walk. So I guess if you have another way of drawing cards, like the yeah, I guess like the other one's the Psychic Battle one, yeah, that card, then this could work. Stroke of Genius, or if you have Archivist or something like that, another way of drawing cards. Stroke of Genius, kind of an end condition if you have infinite mana. You just deck your opponent, you stroke them, as my old friend would say. Penumbra Worm, 7 mana, 6/6 trample. When it dies, you get another 6/6. Pretty cool. Again, good for reanimation. Dragonlight Ojutai, 5 mana, 5/4 flying. Hexproof as long as it's attacked, and then deals combat damage. It has like a built-in mini impulse thing, so this is good. Good card for actually a good commander, I guess, for white and blue. This one is the man land for green and white for the cycle. It's 3 mana, 3/4. Yeah, 3 mana for 3/4 until end turn. Predator Flagship is one of the legendary artifacts from the Weatherlight Saga. It's 7 mana to destroy any creature, and 5 mana if they already have flying. So pretty powerful ability. It's a dual land right there, and here Wheel of Sun and Moon. If any card to be put into your graveyard, you put it into the bottom of your library. Actually, you can use this on your opponent too if they have a lot of graveyard effect shenanigans going on. Yeah, that's a good one to annoy your opponent. Kind of similar to the Vital Lantern, Soldari Digger I went through earlier. Thunder Dragon. I think this was originally from Portal. Enters the battlefield, everything takes 3 damage that's not flying. Okay, so it's a good board clear. Yeah, 7 mana though. Iridescent Angel, this is a good one for reanimation as well. Damn, I should really make a reanimation deck. We get 7 mana, 4/4, providing protection from all colors. That's cool. So, yeah, basically nothing can really kill it. Well, some things can kill it, I guess. Artifacts can kill it, but yeah. Charlotte's Agent, 3 mana, 2/2, Cascade. That's the only effect, and Cascade's a really good effect. So maybe worth putting into a green-blue deck. Skyship Weatherlight is the ship that the Weatherlight crew, the aforementioned Weatherlight crew, what they use to travel around in. And yeah, this is the counterpart to the Predator flagship, which is used by Volrath and the Ascendant Invocar and Grenevec, but this one used by Gerard Capuchin and Sisse. So comes into what it actually does is you search your library for any number of artifact and creature cards, and then for 4 mana you can choose to tutor for one of those cards essentially. So very situational, can be powerful as well. Transcendent Master, 3 mana. You level up and it becomes indestructible. Requires a lot of mana though. 2 mana sink into it. Silver Seraph is an interesting angel card. 6/6. Flying, other creature you control get +2/+2 with your threshold, so it's a huge buff later on in the game. Fledgling Dragon, basically it's a 2/2 flying for 4 mana, but becomes a Shivan Dragon when you have threshold. Archon of Justice, when it dies, this does kind of a Path to Exile, Swords of Plowshares kind of thing, which is really, really good. Angel Salvation, another angel here, prevents 5 damage when it comes to the battlefield. I like angels and dragons, that's why I have a lot of those. Oracle Nectars is a life gainer, so what is this? X gain, X life, simple, good. Another dragon here has fire breathing, gives all your creatures fire breathing, and it looks really cool. Hero of Oxid Ridge is, yeah, good for aggro decks. Creature power 1 or less can't block. I can't imagine that would be too many creatures, but okay. I guess walls would not block really. That's good. Rogue's Blade Wing, 6/5 flying haste, simple and aggressive. Play Slagworm, another reanimation target, 7 mana for 8/8 and hexproof. Yeah, good reanimation target. Sylvos, 6 mana, 8/5 trample, tap 1 regenerate. Really, really powerful for a mono green deck. Orin Reef is, I used it for my persist deck before, because once your persist creatures come back, you just put a +1/+1 counter on them and cancels it out. You can keep reusing them. And also good for token decks. Honor Hydra, 6/6 trample, and you can return it back to the battlefield for 4 mana as a 6. So it's kind of like a reverse Penumbra Worm. So yeah, the Horn Hydra instead. 2-headed dragon, cool looking artwork, and can be blocked by 2 creatures, can be blocked conditional creatures. So I like this flavor text and these abilities here. It's like it has 2 heads. Cool artwork. Not a very powerful card these days, but back then I guess it was powerful. Skyship Stalker, another dragon. That's about all I had to say for that. Molimo Marrow Sorcerer, another good reanimation target, I guess. Maybe not so good actually. 7 mana. Oh, it's equal to the number of lands you control. Okay, so I guess it's good late game. So maybe not a good reanimation, but good for late game. Glorious Anthem. It's good, simple pump card for all your creatures. 3 mana, all creatures you control get +1/+1. I believe really good for token decks, good for white weenie decks. Friction Processor comes in play. You pay amount of life, then you pay 4 mana to create a token with power and toughness equal to it. So yeah, I'm sure you can use this as some combo somewhere, like pay 19 life and then gain it all back somehow. Echoing Truth is basically a better Boomerang. I mean, Boomerang can return lands too, which is great, but this one, if they have a bunch of tokens or something like that, then yeah, it's better, and it's not too blue, so easier to splash. Okay, Arcanist the Omnipotent. Okay, tap, draw 3 cards. This is the main ability here. Good for reanimation. Yeah, 3/4 has a built-in concentrate, which is great. Okay, Abosha Cephalid Emperor. I like this ability here. You can either tap itself to tap any permanent, which includes lands, but 3 mana for Deluge is awesome. So Deluge is tap all creatures that are flying. If the opponent has basically all elves or something like that, you just tapped all his basically his entire attack force, which is awesome for 3 mana. You can do that repeatedly too. Icefall Regent is a blue dragon. I guess that's why I have it. Freezes freezes a creature when it comes into the battlefield. Kind of similar to the Seraphore or some. There was a creature earlier I talked about that's kind of similar. Jora the Gitu is really cool. Could be cool commander card because you can tap 2 mana to suspend something from your hand, and suspend means it comes whatever. You don't have to pay the full mana cost, but it comes back in 4 turns. So if you have like a Progenitus or something like that, 2 mana, 4 turns later it comes on the battlefield. Pretty cool. Good for commander decks and Emperor. Okay, Utvar Helvite. No dragon, so I guess when this thing attacks, you get a 6/6 red dragon creature token of flying. Wow. The power levels have really creeped up. Sabertooth Nashoba. 6 mana, 5/5. Just a simple, good, efficient card here. 5/5 trample, pro red, pro blue. Simple and efficient. Black Seventh Zenith, great removal here. Kind of like Mutilate. Except you get -1/-1 counters, which means they stay on the creature and gets shuffled back into your deck. This is another dragon, Monarch, I guess, and you get 5/5 red. Okay, it's kind of every upkeep, which is good. But I haven't played with Monarchs and stuff before. Kega the Tide Stars is cool for control decks. It's a blue dragon first of all, which is cool, and then 5 mana. When it dies, you have you gain control of a creature, kind of like and it's a permanent effect. It's no enchantment or something like that. It's a permanent effect. Chlorophant, it's similar to Rushwood Elemental, except it's only 3 mana, and if it has Threshold, you get 2 +1/+1 counters every turn, so it keeps on growing, which is a cool card. Hystrodon, you can morph for 3 mana, so that's much better. 3 mana for 3/4 is good. Trample, and then you draw a card when it deals damage, so it's kind of like the Armored Viper I talked about earlier, except it has Trample and then it deals damage, so it is a good combination right there. Gigapede, Shroud, and then 6/1, low toughness, but when it dies, you can discard a card to return it back to your hand, but 5 mana is quite a bit to pay for something like that. Alright, Parallel Lives is, yeah, it's for token decks. You basically double your tokens. It's doubling season without the counter effect, so it's definitely not as good, but better for pure token-based decks, I guess. Thicket Elemental is a cool creature to use, in just a playful game, I guess. It's not a serious tournament-worthy card, but pay the kicker, and if you have like a giant creature, maybe this guy, it comes out on the battlefield for that 2 mana, so that's good. Symbiotic Worm is that at 8 mana, 7/7. When it dies, you get 7/1 green tokens. I believe Hearthstone just made a card similar to this, so there they go, copying Magic again. Living Hive, 8 mana, 6/6. When it deals combat damage, you get that many 1/1. Okay, so it's another good reanimation target. High mana cost. Huge effect. Goring Ceratops, 7 mana, 3/3 double strike. And other creatures you control get double strike until end of turn when it attacks. So that's scary. Again, if you can reanimate that, it'd be good. Reclamation Sage is destroy artifact or enchantment. It is a good utility card for use in the sideboard. Angel of Chorus, it's good for creatures that keep coming back into play, like the Venser and Flicker decks that I mentioned before. You gain life every time that happens, so it might be good for those decks. Do I have this in my Venser deck? Maybe I should have it. Gain life every time. Jessica Warrior Dev is actually better than her brother Kamal because she has haste. Not just haste, but she can tap to deal 1 damage. And first strike, yeah. This is what Kamal should have had, first strike. So 3/1, she can actually beat her brother in battle because of first strike, and she can actually kill her brother as well because taps deal 1 damage and her mana cost is less. So I think she's actually better than her brother Kamal. Wolfskull Shaman is a good token card. This was in my token deck before. Well, good for elf shaman decks, I guess, and token decks. Royal Elemental is good control card. You can, whenever land you control, whenever you play a land, you gain control of a creature as long as you control this. But you gotta make sure to protect it because it's only 3/2. Requiem Angel, 5/5. Whenever something dies, you get a 1/1. So I guess a good angel card. Yeah, I just have that because it's an angel, I guess. Wind Weaver is kind of like Morphling, except it's white-blue and it's not quite as good. I mean, you can return it to its hand, so it can't really die that easily if you have mana, but I find the ability is not quite as good. And it's only a 1/3 on top of that. If it was a 3/3, it'd be better. Phantasmal Image is clone, except it's only 2 mana. It's half the cost, but it has, when it becomes a target of a spell ability, you get to sacrifice it. But that's often not a bad drawback, so this is more used than clone. It's very cheap. Quicksilver Dragon, Blue Dragon. I just find it a cool card to look at. You can change the target for 1 mana. It has a deflection for 1 mana, and you can morph it. It's cool. Razormaid Mastercore, also cool looking card. 5 mana, 5/5. First strike, but you have to. It has the Mastercore effect, which is sacrifice unless you discard card. But it has a built-in lightning bolt every turn, except for only creatures. So I think it could be a pretty decent card for those mid-range decks, I guess. Alright, Beacon of Creation is a pretty powerful card. 4 mana, you get 1/1 for each force you control. It used to be my token deck. Creates a lot of tokens. Nivi's Disc, old school card. Enters battle for taps, 4 mana, but 1 mana to destroy basically everything except for lands and planeswalkers. So, yeah, destroys almost everything. But they can regenerate. But yeah, this is a good colorless removal spell. Rising Waters, 4 mana. Actually, I think Oblivion Stone is still better than this, but this was the old school one before OB Stone came out. Rising Waters, kind of like Winter Orb, except it's blue mana cost version of Winter Orb. And this one is basically the same as Oblivion Ring. It's pretty much exactly the same. Yep. And Mystic Crusader, not quite as good as Mystic Enforcer though, because 2/1 only. Pearl Black and Red, you need Threshold, then it becomes a 2/3. Yeah, 3/2 flying. Still, yeah. For the mana cost though, you need Threshold to be pretty decent. Avatar Wolf's pretty cool, 8 mana, 6/5. Fear and tap to destroy a creature. Yes, that's tap to destroy a creature can be generated. Very, very powerful ability. I would probably use this in a reanimation deck. Future Sight. Play the top card as though it's in your hand, and you play with it revealed. So you get an extra card in your hand, basically. You're playing with an 8-card hand when you play that card. Stern Warfare, 1 mana. Good for white decks that have a lot of extra mana to sink in, I guess. White weenie decks, I mean. Swords to Plowshares, classic removal spell, 1 mana. This is the old version, removed from the game entirely. Gain life equal to its power or toughness. Legion's Landing, get a 1/1, attack 3/1, transform. I guess I used it for what does it transform into? Oh, a land that creates venom. Okay, it's kind of like Kajoldan Outpost then. Blazing Archon, also good reanimation target because creatures can attack you. Look at that. That's insanely powerful, isn't it? It's a 5/6 flying on top of that. Jedit, 6 mana, 5/5 Force Walk, and attacks with blocks get 2/2 with Force Walk again. Reanimation, otherwise I can't figure out how would you be able to cast that. Another good reanimation one. You pay 3 mana for a creature card from graveyard into battlefield under your control. Really good, I guess, since it reanimates other things. Good commander card. Talked about this one. This one automatically reanimates creatures from graveyard, so this itself is good for reanimation because 9 mana is pretty hard to get. But the fact that it reanimates stuff every turn, you probably want that card in your deck. And Mirari is historical card from the Odyssey block. When you play an instant sorcery, you pay 3 mana to copy that spell. So this was the main artifact from that block. However, the effect is powerful. I'm not going to say it's not powerful. You can copy any instant or sorcery, but a little bit slow. Grand Abolisher. During your turn, opponents can't cast spells, so it's basically a lockdown card, kind of like Damping Matrix. Body Double is clone, except it becomes a copy of any creature card in the graveyard. So again, if you're dumping huge amounts of creatures in your graveyard, this is good. Felidar Guardian, it's good for Flicker and Venser deck, I guess. Yeah, similar to Flicker Wisp. Riffling Cloudskate comes into play, enters the battlefield, does a boomerang. So this is also good for a Venser Flicker deck. So you keep playing it and bouncing things back to your opponent's hand. Nice Game Master, just like the other masters, very, very versatile creature, but a little bit low in stats. Android Brush Hopper, I think this is, oh yeah, the Judgment block. 3 mana, 3/4. Discard 2 cards, basically makes it invincible from anything, because you can flicker it anytime you want, so before it gets damaged or targeted, you can do that. But the 2 card cost activation is a little bit high. Kodama the North Tree, 5 mana, 6/4 trample, and it has Shroud, so it's just a nice, efficient card for mono green. Render Silent is counterspell with an extra white mana attached to it, which is basically an Orim's Chant. So this Orim's Chant effect here can be pretty useful, because if your opponent has a lot of things they want to do that turn, well, they can't do that anymore. Gideon Jura, Planeswalker, yeah, it's pretty good, I guess, for a mid-range white control deck. Gale Powder Mage, again, Flicker, Venser type of thing, return something, trigger effects, stuff like that. Night of the Holy Nimbus, yeah, it's hard to kill because if it takes damage, you regenerate it, and then 2 mana, they have to pay the extra 2 mana to not regenerate it, so it's a little bit an annoying card for people. Okay, Auction Tice has a kind of a Ghostly Prison type of effect. That could be pretty annoying for people, and the 3/5 flying for 4 mana is not too bad, but you have to be dedicated to white to use it. Gilded Lotus, 5 mana for tap to add 3 mana of any color, so basically it's Black Lotus type of effect, except you can use it as many times as you want. No, I wouldn't say as many times as you want. You can use it once every turn, whereas Black Lotus you have to sacrifice it, but it's 5 mana instead of 0 mana, so that's a huge difference. Nantuku Shade, 2 mana, 2/1. You can pump it as. When I first saw this card, I thought it was shitty, but it turns out if you can pump it as much as you want, so it's actually a pretty good card for mono black control or mono black aggro, I would say. Yeah, and this one, Reality Strobe, I like this card because it suspends itself, so basically returns and casts itself every 3 turns. So if you combine this with the Riftwing, with the Riftwing Cloud Skate. With this guy, then it can be pretty darn annoying for your opponent, I guess. Cloudwing Oracle, yeah, but this one is it's 3 mana to cost. Okay, suspend 3. So I guess I might use it in a Venser deck, but I have too many things. I have too many other cards vying for that slot, so. Coiling Oracle is a pretty good card. 2 mana, 1/1. You reveal a cop card. If it's a land, you put it into play. Otherwise, you put it in your hand, so either draw a card or you get a free land. So either way, it's good. Whitewood Hidemaster token deck, I guess, for elves. Elf token deck. Whenever another elf comes into play, you get a 1/1 green insect. So I used to use that in my elf token deck. Afara is good for white-blue kind of, yeah, for the white-blue enter the battlefield kind of effects. I used to have this in my Venser deck. Each upkeep, you have another creature, you draw a card, so, and 6/5 indestructible. True Believer is Ivory Mask on a creature, except it's only 2 mana, but then again, it can be killed a lot more easier too, so plus minuses. Words of Worship, I used to use this in my white control deck because if I can basically deck the opponent, and this thing can prevent myself from decking if it's a long game, and you gain life at the same time. So if you have like a Howling Mine or something like that that draws multiple cards, then this thing can be pretty insane. You can gain like 10 life a turn if you have a Howling Mine. Okay, Restoration Angel, I use this in my Venser deck because it has flash, and when it comes into play, it flickers something. So, that's pretty good. Twilight Shepherd is another angel. Persist, which is pretty cool, and return. Okay, can be a pretty annoying card, but yeah, interesting one. Nantuku Mentor used to be my friend's favorite card. Me and my friend used to play this one back in the day. 3 mana to double target creature. It's power, basically, based on their power, but it's really, the stats are really crappy. It's fragile. Aegis Angel, you give anything indestructible as long as you control it, so make sure you put it on something really good, like something that can win you the game, basically. Yeah. This one's good for multiplayer because you cast a spell, you lose 2 life, gain 2 life. Scalpelectus, this is a pretty interesting card. If it deals damage, it's a mill card, basically. They remove the top 4 cards, and if 2 of those cards have the same name, you repeat it. So potentially you could mill the entire deck just by 1 activation if you're lucky. But yeah, pretty scary card, but it costs 5 mana, so a little bit mana heavy. Like that is flying though. And the picture is just a little bit creepy, but yeah. Vampiric Dragon, just a really cool dragon, because it's dragon is a vampire. So yeah, 5 mana, and then it pumps itself by dealing damage. Rockall Reaches is the man land for red and black. In this case, it's a 2/2. We saw this card already. Strionic Resonator copies triggered abilities. I think the other one, Rings of Bright Earth, I wanted to get too, but it was a little bit too expensive. That one's for activated abilities. This is only for triggered, which is stuff like comes into the battlefield of type of effects. I guess kind of like this gun, right? This would be a triggered ability. Meddling Mage. Cool effect. I think this was an invitational card. Comes into play, you name a card, and the named card can't be played, which means that if this card can basically shut down a lot of combos. It shuts down combo decks. Yeah, good card. Aetherling is Morphling, except not as good. 1 mana more, and the stats are better, but the abilities, I mean, there's 2 less abilities here compared to Morphling, so... Oh no, one less ability compared to Morphling, but the abilities aren't quite as good. So, yeah, Exile, not quite as good as gaining Shroud, so... Or it doesn't have the untap ability either. Switch to Arcane. If you lose a game, you exile this, your life total becomes equal to your starting life total. Interesting card. Kind of like reminds me of Platinum Angel. Knight of Soul's Betrayal. All creatures get -1/-1. I used this in my Enduring Ideal deck with Humility, because you remember how Humility makes all creatures 1/1s and loses their abilities? Well, this one kills everything. And you know how Dovescape, whenever they play a non-creature spell, it becomes 1/1 birds? Yeah, basically this one kills everything on the field. That permanently prevents them from being able to do anything. So if you combine this with Humility and Dovescape, that's really frightening. Chandra Firebrand is a good red planeswalker, I guess. I don't really use it that much, though. Yeah, it's alright, I guess. One of the first planeswalkers. Spawn Wraith, I like this card because it's cool. I've never really used it, but 2/2 Trample doesn't seem like much. I guess you have to pump it. Deals combat damage, you put a token that's a copy of itself, and that copy can create other copies, and those copies can create other copies, so it can get pretty out of hand. This one is just an efficient Skylasher 2/2. Flash can't be countered, reach per blue, so I guess it's good against blue. Death Grasp, white and black. It's basically Blaze, and it's basically a Blaze that gains you life, so it's like a Drain Life, basically. So it's a newer version of Drain Life, and yeah, I guess useful in control decks. This one, Gift of Mortality, I use it in my Protection White deck because it's annoying and prevents the opponent from really killing my creatures. Fire's Yavimaya gives all my creatures haste, makes them all hasty, so that's good for aggro. Plus you can sack it. Braid's Cable Minion's interesting. Every player's upkeep that plays sacrifices something. Very, very annoying card to play against. Pariah, use it in my Protection White because if you have something that's indestructible or prevents all damage, then yeah, there's nothing your opponent can't really do damage to you by combat damage, at least. Reborn Hero, kind of annoying card because it's Vigilance, but when it dies, you can pay 2 mana to return it back to play. But you can only do that if you have Threshold, so yeah. If this didn't have this Threshold kind of requirement, this would be a much better card. Sun Titan enters battlefield, turn target permanent, not just creatures, with mana cost 3 or less. Very, very powerful card, and I would use it, I guess, in a mid-range white kind of deck. Very, very powerful. Serra Avatar, power and toughness are equal to your life total. So for 7 mana, this could potentially be a 20/20 because you start at 20 life. And when it dies, you shuffle into your library. This is preventing it from being reanimated. However, there's no trample, there's no flying, so yeah, it can be just chump blocked all day, right? This one, return target from graveyard to the battlefield. It's really, really good reanimate spell, but it's 5 mana. Because it can return anything, not just creatures, but 5 mana. Black Vice, really good card for those Underworld Dreams type of decks, and Howling Mine type of decks, you know. But yeah, I prefer Iron Maiden better because every opponent takes the damage, not just one opponent. Alright, Nullstone Gargoyle, I guess this is a very, very annoying card for opponents to play against, but it's 9 mana. Yeah, first non-creature spell, counter that spell, can pretty much shut down some decks, I would say, but 9 mana. This one is 13/13. Sacrificing unless you pay 2. Okay, just a really, really big ass creature. Zerg's Reading is a good card for this is a good card for the Form of Dragon. You know how Form of Dragon returns you to 5 life every turn? Well, this one, if a player would draw a card, he or she, you may pay 2 life to deny the opponent a draw, basically. You would destroy that card. And if you get restored to 5 life every turn, then you can basically soft lock the opponent out of the game, because they can never draw a card again. You get restored life and you pay 2 life every draw, so yeah. Static Orb is a really, really annoying card. I guess this is used in Lockdown and Stacks decks. Yeah, it's even worse. I mean, it's even more annoying than Winter Orb, because Winter Orb is 2 lands, this one is 2 permanents, so this one is even more restrictive. I use it in my Underworld Dreams deck to annoy. With Tangle Wire, of course, to annoy my opponents. Regrowth, really good card. 2 mana, return anything from my graveyard to my hand. Very, very simple to use. But it's a sorcery, so can't put it on the Scepter. Okay, Knight of Valkyrie is good for green-white decks when you use a lot of fetch lands. So 2/2, you get +1/+1 for each land in your graveyard. And you can sacrifice a Forest of Plains, that includes a dual land as well. And then you search your library for any land card, not just a Forest or Plains, it can be any land. So good if you run a lot of powerful lands and fetch lands. This is a Chinese Cloud Key. Basically reduces the cost of whatever you choose by 1 mana. So good for combos. I use it in my Ironworks combo deck. Capsize. Okay, this one, if you have a lot of mana, you can basically return all your opponent's permanents to their hand, because you can just keep buybacking. So it's good if you have infinite mana. We talked about this card already. Alright, so Sultured Ghoul is used in the Cephalid Breakfast deck I used to have, because you can remove, because it dumps a bunch of creatures into the graveyard, and then you can remove them all, and yeah, and this becomes like a giant 30/30 flying because of Wonder and Trample thing that also has haste because of another card on my graveyard. So yeah, this is a combo card basically. This is Beacon of Creation Chinese. Fiendslayer Paladin, similar to Paladin on Vec. 2/2, except instead of protection, it just has protection from spells, I guess. First strike and lifelink though. So yeah, it's first strike. It has a kind of like a weaker mini kind of protection thing, but it's lifelink, so it could be better or worse depending on how you see it. Supreme Verdict is Wrath of God that can't be countered but adds a blue splash, so it depends. If you're running blue-white, then this is basically superior to Wrath of God. Curd Ape is a 2/3 for 1 mana as long as you have Forest in play. Good. Precinct Captain, 2 mana 2/2. Whenever it deals combat damage, you get a 1/1 white soldier creature token on the battlefield, so good for white aggro decks. We've gone over this card before. This one is 3 mana 3/3. You can sack it to make everything indestructible until in return, so it's kind of like a... You would only use this if you really had to protect something, but I guess a decent card for the stats. Opalescence makes every other global enchantment, which is a non-era enchantment, creatures, so you would use this in an enchantment deck, which I do. Your Turtle Nephilim, the mana cost is a little bit crazy here. You need to really splash, but and the stats are kind of weak, but whenever it attacks, you get to reanimate something, and it's already attacking, so why not reanimate something like this one, Acroma Angel of Fury. This is the red shifted version of Angel of Wrath, the original white Acroma, because it has a ton of keyworded abilities, just like the original white Acroma Angel of Wrath. Flying, Trample, Protection, white and blue, Fire Breathing, and a Morph. So, not quite as good as the white version, though. This is another Acroma clone, I would say. I don't think I have the original Acroma. I think the reason... I don't know the reason. I should probably have the original Acroma here, but... This is another Acroma clone. Yeah, it has a more splashy mana cost, but the abilities, I think, here are better than the original Acroma Wrath, and much better than this Acroma. Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink, Pro Red, and Pro Green. Very, very good. Impulse, great spell to use, especially on a Scepter. Actually, both of these spells are good to use on a Scepter. 2 mana to dig 4 cards deep into your library and get one of those cards. So it's, if you really want to find that combo card or the card you need, then this is a good one. I don't know why they haven't reprinted this one, by the way. It's a good one. Orm's Chant, 1 mana, can't play spells, and then you add a kicker, can't pay, creatures can't attack. So if you put this on a scepter, an Isochron scepter, and you pay the kicker every turn, you soft lock your opponent. They can't play spells, and they can't attack basically every turn for the rest of the game. So this is a good card to use. That's why it's called Chant Scepter. That was the deck. This is a commander card, I believe. I haven't really used it before. Dawn Elemental, I use it in Protection White because 4 mana is white heavy. It's pretty much mono white. But Prevent All Damage is really good, especially with Pariah. And yeah, if you put Pariah on it. Chroma's Vengeance destroys almost everything. Artifacts, creature, enchantments. Doesn't destroy lands, doesn't destroy planeswalkers, but at the time this came out, there was no planeswalkers. I think this came out in the Onslaught expansion. But hey, you can also cycle it. So this is basically a more powerful Wrath of God, except, yeah, it costs more mana. Boonmate Dragon, I think this is a good reanimate target. Enters the battlefield, you get a 4/4 red-green, red dragon creature token flying, so 8/8 worth of stats. It's good. Nevermore is basically Meddling Mage in enchantment form. Crawl Space, no more than 2 creatures can attack you each format. That's just good for control decks, and I think for my protection deck it would be good because I only have to block 2 creatures with 2 indestructible creatures or something, or 2 Dawn Elementals, and then they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Alright, this is the Isochron Scepter I was talking about. For a lot of those cards, you exile a instant card with 2 mana less. For example, Orm's Chant, or Impulse, or Counterspell or something, or Swords to Plowshares. And then 2 mana, you tap, you copy it, and you can basically copy it every turn. And more, I guess, if you untap it with Voltaic Key or something. So, yeah, definitely very, very powerful card. Entire decks were built around it. This is Oblivion Ring, except only for creatures, and costs 1 mana less. Teferi's Moat is Moat, except you have to splash blue for it, and you can only choose 1 color. However, unlike Moat, you can still attack with your flying creatures. They just can't attack you, so that's pretty interesting, but it's only of the chosen color. Might be good against elves, so I used it against elves before, and my friend got so mad. He can't do anything anymore. Madrush Cyclops, 3/4, creatures can 12 haste, so good for aggro if you can splash those colors. I think I've done this card before. Alright, then we have Spawning Pit, which is good for token decks because, especially with doubling season, because you can double the amount of charge counters on this, and then you can tap 1, remove, and then you get multiple tokens, I guess. So it's a really great card to be using with counter decks and token decks. For HD Untouchable, I think what's unique about this card is the fact that whenever it deals combat damage to a creature, you destroy that creature, and when it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. So what kind of, this is an amazing, ridiculous effect that a lot of people couldn't believe when this card came out. Like, it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. It just has to deal, like, imagine putting trample on this thing, or flying or something, right? That's going to be hard for people to deal with. But you can't reanimate it because it says, if you didn't cast it from hand, you lose the game. So you have to pay this mana cost normally. But there are, you know, ways of doing that, like Gilded Lotus. Okay, this one is it's a Vampire Queen, flying haste, deals damage. +1 deals damage to player, you may draw a card. So just it's kind of like On Viper, except it's like a flying bigger version. It's like Send You a Vampire. I would say Send You a Vampire that draws you cards in S haste. Ashnod's Altar. Okay, 2 mana. Sorry, 3 mana artifacts, 0 mana, sack a creature to add 2 mana. Good for combo decks. I use this in my Ironworks combo. Although I have a version, I have Corcoran Ironworks instead. Yeah, that's basically better. But this is the version that you would use if you had a more general purpose, not just artifacts, I guess. Anger gives you haste as long as it's in your graveyard. So basically same as Wonder. If you dump this in your graveyard, it's kind of like Fires of Yavimaya in that sense. Fabricate is basically Enlightened Tutor or Mystical Tutor. It's a tutor for artifacts, except you get it right in your hand. So you pay the extra 2 mana for that, ahead of, compared to Enlightened Tutor. Confiscate, 6 mana, control anything on the board, even Planeswalkers. So that could be pretty good. Mirror Incubator, use this in what was it called? The Goblin Charbelcher deck? Yeah, that was the deck that used this. You just remove a bunch of, you would have your entire deck be full of artifact lands and cards and stuff. You would use this, you would remove your whole deck, and then you would Goblin Charbelch them for your whole deck, basically. So, yeah. No, you wouldn't remove your whole deck, sorry. You would remove all your artifact cards and stuff, and then, yeah. And then until you reach the end or something like that, and then you Charbelch them for a whole bunch of damage. So, yeah. Till you get a mountain or something like that. Defense Grid, okay. This one is a sideboard card against blue decks, basically, because counter spells and other spells, instants, cost an additional 3 mana on other players' turns, so it was a good sideboard card. Helm of Awakening, it's kind of like Cloud Key, except it's a little bit more restricted. It's less restrictive because it says all spells, but then it also helps your opponent as well. So that includes your opponent's spells. So once you play this, you can combo a lot, just like, I think I use this in, you can use this in conjunction with this one and some other stuff. I think that these two can be related as well. Yeah, just sacrifice stuff, keep playing them over and over again because they're cheaper now. Artifacts, have an artifact deck, affinity for artifacts deck, and some stuff can just be free. You can just keep playing over and over. Keep sacrificing them. Scrap Keep gives you infinite life if that happens. I think I use Mirror Retriever and Junk Diver for that. Mishra's Helix, you can tap your opponent's lands, so you can't bother you on your turn. And Genesis Chamber, again, this is all related to the Ironworks combo I have. Whenever something comes into play, you get a 1/1. Helps your opponent as well, but if you're doing like an infinite combo kind of thing, this definitely helps you more. Junk Diver is, yeah. So when it dies, you get another artifact from your graveyard to your hand, and you can play that over and over again. So that's what enables that combo. And then if you reduce the cost, right, then you can just keep playing it. Anyway, Counterspell, again, we've gone over this, except this artwork is from 7th edition. Mobilization, Soldier deck, you can repeatedly create tokens, which can be a nuisance for your opponent. Read the Runes, it's basically drawing X cards, and then it's Stroke of Genius, except you had to discard a card, so it's, I think this would be good in a Threshold kind of deck when you're trying to use Madness or Threshold. Lodestone Mirror, for Affinity or Artifact decks, you tap a bunch of artifacts, give it, it has Trample, you just pump it up to a massive creature and you attack with it. Arcane Denial is a counter spell. It's a hard counter spell, but the guy who you countered the spell, they get two more turns the next turn, so 2 more cards the next turn, so might not be that great. But 1 colorless, 1 generic mana, and 1 blue mana, so the mana costs are a little bit less. But yeah, if you have Mana Drain or Force of Will, it's definitely better than this, right? Frantic Search is a basically free spell. You can tap up to 3 lands, but you do the free, you draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. So it's good for Threshold, good for Madness decks. Ivory Mask, you can't be target spells abilities. Okay, so it's good protection for white control. Then you got Seal of Fire, which is basically shock as an enchantment. Seething Song, good for combos. 3 mana to add 5 mana. It's used a lot in TEPS decks, TEPS, for the Mind's Desire kind of decks. Yeah, they use this a lot. I used to play one of those decks back in the day. Story Circle is Circle of Protection for any color that you choose. That's why it costs a little bit more mana, but it's worth it because this ability is quite annoying, and they would have to probably destroy this enchantment. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do damage to you. Form Dragon, again, I think. Yep, I have a lot of those. And Mana Leak, 2 mana, counter target unless they pay 3. It's very, 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 very well costed counter spell. It's not a hard counter spell though, it's a soft one. Opposition, I use it in my Intruder Alarm Opposition deck. You tap a creature you control to tap any artifact, creature, or land. Usually you tap their creatures and your lands to prevent them from attacking and prevent them from using mana, which is quite, as you can imagine, it's kind of like a lockdown kind of thing, so it's quite annoying for them. Gone over this card is Smother. It's the original Onslaught version. Mirror Retriever is basically Junk Diver, except it's 2 mana. Junk Diver was 3 mana. This is only 2 mana, so it's better, I guess. It doesn't have flying, but who cares? And then Angel Condemnation, which is kind of like a flicker type of effect, again, for a Venser type of deck, which I didn't have room for. And that's it, guys. That's a lot of cards I went through. Damn. Let me know if you have any questions.